Hello, cuties. Welcome to the quest board. I've seen lots of Dollar Tree Dollhouse makeovers, and I wanted to try it myself. Check out Dirty Basement Terrain's channel for his excellent series of conversions. My build coincides with the Spooky Challenge at Karl Makes Stuff. I linked to both channels in the description. The story is about a fateful Halloween-esque night where a teenage sleepover takes a turn into the realms of dread, bravery, and self-discovery. It's an origin story of sorts, but what exactly has been born this night? Are you sure you don't want to come with us, dear? Sonora's mother stood before the full-length mirror in the foyer, adjusting the brim of her travel hat and pressing imaginary wrinkles from her skirt. You can still pack some formal clothes and turn your sleepover bag into a travel bag. Sonora sat on the stairs, watching the open front door with dismay. When her father pulled up with the carriage, they would all get in. She would be dropped off at Mithra's house for a sleepover, and her parents would continue to the city for their annual conference and trade show. Their descriptions of the lectures, demonstrations, and network gatherings made undertaking sound even more boring than she already found it. Why can't I just stay home? Her mother stiffened just for a moment, then turned to her calmly. It is the first harvest tide without your Nona. She brushed a stray lick of hair from her daughter's face. No one should be alone in this house with the memories that she left behind. Sonora could see on her mother's face that a very unpleasant thought had crossed her mind. Her mother's hands were warm in their black velvet gloves as she took her daughter's face in her hands. Promise me that you will not sneak back to stay alone in this house tonight. I promise, said Sonora honestly. She received a kiss on her cheek as reward. It will be good to make friends, her mother assured her. It will make you a stronger person. Sonora had tried to fit in, or at least stay out of the way of most of the others who, like her, had reached their teenage years. She was excited, but wary, when she received the invitation to Mithra's party. Mithra, Aura, and Helmane were very popular. They had never asked her to hang out with them before, and even though she had no proof, Sonora assumed they were responsible for the nickname Zenora the Bora and the rumor that her family ate the flesh of their clients. She would rather lounge at the reading window, watch the full moon, and listen to the forest whisper and sing to itself. Just as she did each year when Nona returned from her seasonal trip into the woods. Sonora wondered if she'd had a boyfriend out there, because Nona would appear bare-legged as she exited the forest tree line, her face ruddy with recent exertion, and her curly hair in wild disarray. Sonora had made up her mind to ask her this year, while they were alone at the house during her parents' trip, but Nona had died in her sleep months ago. The girl regretted all the missed chances to learn from her and repay her, mostly for just listening and not judging her or telling her exactly what to do. Sonora sighed and pushed away the thoughts of grief and guilt that welled within her. She would do as she was told. Her parents were thoughtful, supportive, and were usually right. So she trusted them. And making them happy made her happy. They had just finished a light dinner of 1 roasted quail and 1 spoon of root vegetables each. Mithra's mother seemed ready to start the harvest-tide party. Zenora envied Mithra's father, who had eaten as many helpings as he liked, and, immediately after, had excused himself from the room with a kiss to his daughter's forehead and a wave to the guests. In contrast, Mithra's mother fluttered from one girl to the other like a hummingbird unable to rest at one flower for long. "So what do you girls want to do?" "Mithra, don't slouch, dear. I have everything we need to bob for apples. Or, you really don't need another piece of cake. I can play the piano while we sing harvest-tide songs. Helmine, your face is lovely, but maybe you can carve the harvest-tide gourd instead of singing. And we can paint your faces. Zenora, you really could use some color all over." Zenora wore a black blouse with antique lace at the cuffs and collar. Her skirt was violet, but the color was so deep it may as well have been black. She clasped her hands in her lap and hoped that no one noticed her discomfort. "Mother, we're turning in early," said Mithra suddenly. She glanced at her guests, and her eyes settled on Zenora. "Zenora's parents have a tradition of her being in bed by sundown and not being disturbed until sunup." Zenora furrowed her brows in confusion and silent protest, but relaxed her face as Mithra's mother turned toward her. She looked at the girl pointedly. "There's more than an hour before dark, child," she said. Then Zenora heard a lilt of disgust in her host's voice as she relented. "Well, I'm sure with your family's chosen profession comes several peccadillos." She strode to her daughter's side and placed her hand on her shoulder. With a solemn expression, she whispered, loudly enough for the room to hear, "Such a tolerant child you are. I see how much you take after me." Mother and daughter bowed their heads briefly in their mutual, long-suffering benevolence. Then Mithra led her guests upstairs to her huge, sumptuous bedroom. As soon as the door closed, Mithra rolled her eyes, sighed heavily, and slumped against it. "Parents make everything so dull," she grunted with exasperation. "But I guess you would enjoy gourd carving and apple bobbing, huh, Bora?" Although she had enjoyed carving some of the gourds that were outside her own house right now, Zenora weakly said, "No." She hated feeling that the opinion of these girls mattered so much. After a few moments, a light seemed to spark in Mithra's eyes. "The undertaker's house is empty on harvest-tide night. That is the most interesting thing about you at this moment. If you let us spend the night there, I think the nickname Zenora the Bora and those gruesome rumors about cannibalism will just disappear. How about it?" As soon as she had swung herself over the windowsill to sneak out of Mithra's house, Zenora regretted agreeing to bring the group to her home. Zenora's family lived on a hill on the opposite side of the forest from the rest of the town. Most people did not come this way because there were no roads, only animal trails. Many in the town called the area the Spirit Wood because they said it was haunted. People had reported strange lights, pained moans, and unrecognizable animal noises coming from the area at different times of night. Her grandmother, who had started the family funereal business, said there were many things, alive and not, that roamed the Spirit Wood at night. And this was the evening of harvest tide. No one in their right mind would wander through the area on the spookiest night of the year. Although she did find it exciting to be in the house without adult supervision, and she technically was not breaking her word to them, Zenora knew her parents would not be happy to find out that she had come back to the house. As she opened the front door and stepped aside to let her guests in, Zenora felt a flicker of pride as their eyes widened and they began to remark about the house. "Is this real velvet on the walls? So soft!" exclaimed Aura. "How do you have fresh roses at harvest tide?" asked Helmaine. "What type of wood is inlaid in the floor? Where are these carpets from? I've never seen these patterns." Zenora answered the girls' questions as thoroughly as she could. Aura and Helmaine complimented her on the uniqueness and expense of the furnishings and design of the house during the brief tour. Conversely, Mithra had been very quiet. "Why didn't you tell us you were rich?" It felt like the temperature dropped when Mithra finally spoke. She stared accusingly at Zenora, as if she had deceived her. "My parents don't talk about money." "You have so many expensive antiques." "We recycle," Zenora said plainly. "Sometimes clients pay with items from the estate instead of gold." Mithra snickered. "Now I know why you wear outdated hand-me-downs." "My clothes are tailor-made for me. Except this dress was my grandmother's," she said solemnly. She rarely entered the woods alone, but she did every harvest tide wearing this dress. "I wear older styles because I like them." Zenora stopped in the middle of the hallway. "And if you don't like my clothing, think I'm boring, and somehow am a cannibal, why did you invite me to your sleepover?" "You are the most goody-goody person I know. I wanted to give you a chance to show you're normal." Mithra smiled mischievously. "Sneaking back here through the Spirit Wood was a start." In a genuine tone, she said, "I'm sorry about your grandmother. But maybe you can talk to her again." She reached into the bag she had bought with them. Aura and Helmaine exchanged a look, but would not meet their host's eyes. "What's happening?" Zenora asked. Mithra revealed a wooden box about the size of a very large book and stood before the group with a triumphant grin. "Look what I found on my doorstep this morning." She opened it up with a snapping movement, and inside, nestled in felt, was a contact board and planchette. Zenora had never seen one, but recognized it by Nona's description and warning. All the letters of the alphabet were printed out on it, along with the numbers 1 through 9, the words yes and no, and the words hello and goodbye. Zenora stepped back involuntarily. Why did you bring that? Mithra's smile widened. It's harvest tide, the creepiest night. We're just outside of the Spirit Wood, the creepiest place. We're in the Undertaker's manse, the creepiest house. Of course, we should play the creepiest game. A feeling of foreboding draped over Zenora like a shawl. She had cleaned and dressed the deceased. She had heard and seen the uncanny and unsettling movements and sounds they made. Her parents had told her that the dead were not a threat to her. Nona had taught her to ignore them and to call her if she felt uneasy. Zenora thought she felt the house shiver with her anxiety and something else. She did not know why she felt she had to prove something to these girls, but maybe she could say goodbye to Nona. Okay, she said. I'm interested. After getting some fruit, water, and crispy fried slivers of potato from the pantry, she walked her guests up the main stairs to the second floor of the house. More velvet, Aura squealed. She ran to the closest wall and trailed her hand along the purple-gray fabric as they walked. An obnoxious bright line of lavender appeared in the wake. Zenora was annoyed, but there was no real harm done. She stopped at the far end of the hallway, reached up, and pulled on a thin rope that opened a trapdoor in the ceiling. A ladder automatically extended down to the floor. I guess the best place would be the attic. Is that spooky enough for you? Mithra grinned. It'll do. Zenora climbed up the ladder first, and then assisted each of the guests. What is this? Said Helmaine. The gloom was only partially displaced by the lanterns and candles that Zenora had begun to light. A four-poster canopy bed took up one corner of the huge vaulted room. A vanity with an ornately framed mirror stood near the middle. Veils and scarves of all colors hung from the ceiling. Antique lace and dark beads embellished almost every fabric. The comforter, tablecloths, drapes, and doilies all were edged in fine beading, fringe, or lace. It looks like a fortune-teller's parlor, said Helmaine. It's my room. Most of this stuff came from my grandmother. She liked fabrics. After a long pause, Mithra asked, a bit unsure of herself, Does anyone know what to do? Zenora sighed. I think I do. Per Zenora's instructions, they lit a circle of candles at the center of the room. As they readied themselves, Zenora noticed a carved symbol on the underside of the planchette. She did not know how, but it reminded her of Nona's favorite earrings. She slipped them out of her vanity and put them on. Although they were hidden by her long, dark hair, she immediately felt more confident. They all sat on the floor within the circle and placed at least one hand each on the planchette. One by one, they each said their name. Then together they chanted, Spirits roaming on this eve, do you have aught to say to me? They allowed their hands to move the planchette back and forth across the board while chanting with increasing volume. The light wind outside began to whoosh and huff. After a few minutes, just when they all began to give each other questioning looks through the flickering candlelight, the planchette stopped abruptly on the word hello. They all stared down at the board, and then started as a thump sounded at one of the attic windows. The branch of the nearby tree seemed to have grown closer as it swayed in the strengthening wind. Then something scrabbled across the roof and down the front of the house. They all followed the sound with their eyes. It went all the way down to the front door, then was silent. They gasped. Then Mithra giggled. Oh, this is getting good. Just keep one hand on the planchette and remember to say goodbye when we're done, said Sonora. Mithra said, I'll go first. Does Sonora eat human flesh? After a few moments, the small teardrop-shaped piece of wood smoothly glided to a series of letters. Not yet. As the answer was revealed, it sounded like the house creaked under the weight of something that had been laid down on the lower floor of the house. What does that mean? Sonora said crossly. Whoever is pushing the planchette, that wasn't funny. She looked at each of the girls angrily, but they all denied spelling out the message intentionally. Aura wanted to go next. Who will marry me? The board spelled out, no one. A brief, scraping sound came from the stairs. Aura turned her face away from the circle. Even in the dim light, the girls could tell that her cheeks had become shiny with tears. Helmaine asked, How much money will I have? The response came back, penniless. Now the house rumbled, creating shuffling noises that came from the second floor below, as if furniture pieces shifted and something without sight bumped into them. What the hell? Said Helmaine. No way! I have a trust! Sonora said, I'll ask my question, and then we'll say goodbye. She thought for a second. If this was a game, she did not want to make light of her Nona's passing. If this was real, she felt it was wrong to speak to her grandmother in front of these vapid girls. Why did each of my guests come here tonight? The planchette now moved more quickly as the wind howled and moaned. Groaning that mirrored the wind seemed to come from below them. The first message. Aura likes you. Aura's face had become pale after her question. Now the skin of her cheeks were rosy and flushed, as if she had been out in the chilling wind. You like me? Well, I think so. I don't know. Thank you, said Sonora. But the planchette began spelling again. Helmaine won a bet. Helmaine hung her head. Mithra bet me our allowance for a month if I could help get her into your house, she admitted. Sonora scowled at her. I don't get my trust until I'm 21. I don't have money like you two. The planchette began to move again. Mithra, scared, it spelled. Sure, I wanted to scare you a little bit. I thought you were a freak. The planchette thrust itself toward the word no. Stop moving it, Zenora. I'm not. The planchette spelled out the message about Mithra again. The girls, repeating aloud each completed word. Mithra is scared of... Mithra yanked her hands off the planchette as if it had burned her. This is a stupid game. The wind picked up again, and it sounded like something had crashed through a downstairs window. Mithra, Aura called out, put your hand back on. I'm bored, Mithra whined. I'm going to get more crisps. You babies can stay here pretending this is not all a joke. She strode over to the trap door, then bent down and raised the foot to step through it onto the ladder. And froze in that inelegant position. She shuddered, then spoke. Mithra. She said her own name in a haunting, hissing, and unfamiliar voice. Although her body was still turned away and stooped over, her head snapped around so both her back and her eyes faced the remaining girls, who all still gripped at the planchette. Mithra is afraid of Zenora. With the last word, Mithra snapped an arm backward and pointed at the bewildered host. Who are you? Zenora stammered. We wait in the wood. Mithra hissed and took a backward step toward her. We watch from the wood. Another step. We call from the wood. Both arms now extended behind the creature and toward Zenora. But you ignore us. Thank you for finally inviting us in. Zenora tightened her grip on the heart-shaped piece of wood and felt the others do the same. Good. They would not let go. She felt the earrings warm against her neck and thought she heard her Nona's voice whisper in her ears. She repeated the words she heard in her head. Do not wait. I will never come to you, Zenora responded clearly. Mimicking the phantom's movement, she took a step forward, and her companions timidly shuffled forward with her. Do not watch. I will show you nothing. Another step, and shuffle forward. I have heard your call, and my answer is this. They were all now just out of arm's length of the intruder, whose face stretched into an elongated, elastic smile that showed its delight to have its prize almost in its grasp. While maintaining eye contact with its bulging, bloodshot eyes and silently cursing the voluminous skirt of her dress, Zenora quickly raised her leg and kicked the ghoul in its midsection, extending her limb to push it backward. It stumbled away, grasping for Zenora's retracted leg as it teetered on the edge of the hatch in the floor. The twisted body it occupied prevented it from easily finding balance, but it did begin to steady itself, and the smile now took up most of its face. Yes, good, strong. Not as strong as her ancestors, but we can teach her. Yes. Ancestors, thought Zenora. What did Nona say when she entered the forest on harvest-tide? The dead are restless. It is time to turn them from us. As a child, she had pictured her Nona walking through the forest with her violet skirt hiked up to her knees, finding corpses and flipping them over like pancakes. Why? So they'd be dead on both sides? It hadn't made sense to Zenora, but if Nona had made an impression on the ghosts of the forest, then she had better do the same. While maintaining a firm grip on the planchette with her right hand, she lifted the left side of her skirt and wrapped it up into her belt so her entire leg was exposed. She pulled her hair back from her ears, and the filigreed earrings glinted as the candles seemed to draw light from them and flare. She stamped her naked leg and brought that hand up in front of her, its palm facing the intruder. It had steadied itself at the lip of the trapdoor, and now began to approach again. Thudding and shuffling came from below the opening, as if an army began to muster there on the second floor. Zenora thought she saw shadows lurking there. "If you think I invited you," she said, "then I uninvite you. Turn from me and from this house." Again, with one leg raised to step, it paused. The attic, the whole house, became silent as a grave. Then a cutting shriek of pain and anger escaped Mithra's mouth as it began to contract. With profound cracks, her neck and arms rotated back into normal alignment as Mithra stepped onto the empty space of the trapdoor and plummeted out of sight. Except for one hand. The unearthly wail morphed into a panicked cry. "Help!" came Mithra's strained voice. "There are things down there! Pull me up, please!" Zenora and her entourage retrieved the contact board and brought it and the planchette to Mithra's hand. "Give us your other hand and put it on the planchette," said Zenora. "What? Pull me up, now!" "Shut up and do it," snapped Helmaine. All the indignation drained from Mithra's face, and she pulled herself up so both her elbows were over the lip of the door. "Something is trying to grab my shoe." As her upper body jerked from the kicks and twists that her lower body was performing to evade whatever reached for her from below, she placed one hand on the planchette that lay on the floor of the attic. The four girls moved the planchette around the board several times until Zenora called out, "Now!" They all moved the planchette to the word, "Goodbye." A final moan and shake of the house heralded the departure of whatever had infiltrated. The three girls pulled Mithra up into the attic, They fell in a knotted heap, panting, weeping, and thanking Zenora for saving them. Zenora lay quietly for several minutes, listening to them wail and laugh and apologize and flatter. She smiled as a rush of contentment and realization came to her. These girls respected her, almost adored her, and she didn't care what they thought of her at all. Whatever was in the forest, it had given her a purpose and vocation. She would travel and study. Maybe she would even speak to Nona one day. But right now, she was exhausted and hungry.